There should be 5 of us, though, but I don't know if she'll get on.
Oh, there she is.
Yay!
Oh my gosh. So annoying, this thing.
But don't you have to leave at 8:30? One of them, us?
I do. I have another Connect session at 8:30.
Okay, well, I say you get full credit because
Because I've been here so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. I think.
Yeah, I don't think
she'll be
she's
okay.
gonna worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I
Sorry
started.
guys, my bad. Freaking
Oh,
thing is so annoying.
that's okay.
Okay.
Amy, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay, sorry. Did you start recording yet?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Katie Andrews.
I'm Sarah Kearns.
Lisa Ball.
I'm Allison Lancidel.
And I am Amy Blaylock, and I am the lead on this week's discussion. What did you guys all think of this week's work?
I thought the video to be very interesting about freeloaders and stuff.
Yeah. That was a little appalling, actually.
Yeah, it really
oh my
was.
goodness.
Can you keep him from crying? Okay, well, let me go through the questions that we have to discuss. It was pretty crazy. I thought all of the learning and reading from this week's. So for what I understand, we are going to discuss, so we're supposed to discuss the questions that we did in the challenges of government, right? Discussion board?
Mm-hmm. The
I
base.
think,
Oh, sorry.
oh, I think it's the discussion board evaluating government efficacy.
Oh yeah, the role of government in advocacy.
It starts with based on what you've read in the Declaration of Independence.
Here we are. So I'm going to start with the first question. We can just go through and talk and see what we think. The first question is, based on what you have read in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, D&C 134, and Elder Construction Talk, what could the government be doing right now to help in fighting your threat to children and families more effectively? So I'm guessing that we all have different threats. I can start. My threat is abstinence before marriage. And I kind of picked that from that whole AIDS video. I didn't realize it was going to stick with me the whole semester. But so basically, I feel like the Declaration of Independence protects life, and so does the Constitution, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I feel like there's no better way to protect life than to respect it enough to not risk bring children here to situations that aren't ideal for children, that when you're not even wanting a child. I think that the government could take a cue from Uganda's government and help teach what Uganda taught, which was the abstinence, be faithful, and use a condom. I feel like that's the last line of defense. So, anyway, I feel like that would be a better thing to teach than the sexual freedoms, rights that they're pushing to teach right now. So for mine, that's kind of how I feel all three of those tie in.
I agree. Like, my threat is abortion. I don't know the specific thing, but mine's about like abortion and stuff. And so like I really liked that video about like Africa and stuff, and that little boy at the end just like stole my heart. He's like, I want my wife to be and me to be like pure, like when we go into marriage. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so tender. Like he was so cute. Like he was so about like he didn't have his parents because they died of AIDS because it's spread all over the place because people sleep with whoever they want to sleep with, and they don't really like have any morals or standards. And so I really liked that video. I think if not just abstinence was taught, but like the importance of sex within marriage, like why it's important to abstain until you actually get married to a committed partner. And so I think I agree with you. That would be a good idea to do.
What was your threat, Sarah?
So my threat against the family was pornography. And I think I'm not really for the government being super involved in everything, but I do feel like they could probably be a little more proactive when it comes to pornography and just allowing it everywhere, because now it's like the easiest thing in the world to search for on the internet, and they can stop it being that easy to search for, I think. So, I don't know. I think the government could definitely help in making pornography not as accessible to people, especially children and to young adults, because it's very damaging for them.
Would you think that if the government regulated it by prosecuting more sites that allow pornography to seep into children's homes, do you think that that would be a good way for the government to intervene?
I think probably. I think there's a lot of well-known sites. I mean, I don't know, but I would assume there's a lot of well-known sites that the government is aware about.
Mm-hmm.
And if they just worked a little harder on maybe not allowing them or being more selective and who can, I don't know, even know how they would do that. That's probably too involved. But I do think, yeah, that they should probably monitor those sites a little bit better.
Well, I feel like it's really hard for them to monitor those sites because the World Wide Web isn't really monitored. I mean, if you think about it, there's not a really good way yet to monitor it. However, you know, I don't know. That's a hard one. It's a hard one.
It is, because you don't want the government to monitor you.
Exactly.
But yet, I mean, like, you're kind of like, okay, there should be some kind of checks and balances for these companies that are doing things that are tainting our children's minds.
Well, and I kind of feel like the basis for the checks and balance is simply the addiction behind it. I mean, if we're going to have a check and balance for something like, oh, I'm sorry, all my children are crying. For something like meth or drugs and outlaw and regulation, I mean, a meth is a 2,000% dopamine release, and pornography is like a 600% dopamine release. And then the other thing is, food is an addiction, and I feel like the government is cracking down on like children. Children and what they're eating, and that they can't have sugar and all these things. And if they're going to crack down on that, then surely and that's only 100% dopamine release. Surely they should take into consideration pornography and any kind of sexual.
So maybe what they need to do is they need to reevaluate their priorities a little bit and put their money where it matters.
Yeah. So let's see. We have two more. Katie and Lisa. What's your guys's? Go
ahead, Katie.
Yeah.
My threat is couples that are married choosing to not have children. So it kind of goes along with, like, I don't know, I guess it kind of goes along with abstinence and stuff, but it's kind of hard to know how much the government should be involved with it. I mean, obviously they should, I don't know. I think they should have some say in, like, what's the word? In supporting having kids and stuff, but like some countries will pay people to have kids, but I don't necessarily think that's the best way to go about it, because then people will only have kids for money, and sometimes that's not even a good motivation for them to have kids. But so I don't really know how much the government should like do about it, just because it's really, I don't know, kind of hard to regulate, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, for me, I would think I agree with what you said. I don't think that they really have a right to regulate it, but I do think they have a right to support like the growing of families, because I don't think they really support that families should grow. And
Yeah.
so maybe just be more proactive in like using the statistics on how good it is to grow up in a family and have children and what children can teach you.
Yeah.
But that should be like the extent of what they do.
Yeah.
Maybe they could provide more programs that educate people on the value of marriage and commitment. And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I think that couples who have children without getting married are a threat to the nation as well, because they're a threat to the economy. Because you know that those aren't secure relationships. Those are probably potential breakups that are going to end up being, you know, on the dole, on the government dole. Because when they break up, then they have two households to worry about. So that's kind of a threat to the nation. But maybe what they could do is provide more education to people of that nature. I don't know how they would do that. I don't know how they would target them. But maybe also they could provide, I think they already do, they provide married couples with tax breaks as opposed to, you know, cohabitation couples. I don't think you get any tax breaks when you cohabitate.
That's true.
You do get the child, you know, tax credit, but I don't know. Maybe they could increase the advantages, the tax advantages to married couples. I'll vote for that.
Maybe they could just protect some basic family rights at the United Nations.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
That'll
true.
help.
Yeah, that would.
Oh my goodness. But
Okay.
that's last week.
All right. So my threat was divorce, and the reason I picked that threat is because I deal with it a lot in my career as a teacher. And I've had so many sad situations come across my classroom, and I've had to be emotionally involved in the issues of divorce and the impact that it has on children. And it's just kind of interesting that we're talking about this, because I just had a little girl come to me the other day and tell me that her parents announced over the weekend they were getting a divorce. And she wanted to know what she could do to be a better kid so they would stay together. And it broke my heart.
Oh.
So she came to me crying, and she said, if I was a better kid, they probably would stay together. And I hugged her, and I told her, no, that's not the issue. I said, it has nothing to do with you. If they didn't have you, they would still be getting a divorce. And it was hard. So anyway, so I did my threat on that, and it just continues to impact me. And I feel very strongly that there needs to be the no-fault divorce reform. I think they need to reform that. And I'm not sure if they have no-fault divorce in Idaho or Utah, but they definitely do in California, and it has increased the number of divorces like crazy. So
I think it's everywhere now, isn't it?
it probably is. I didn't check into that, but I know it's definitely a big thing in California.
Yeah.
So there are lots of people out there advocating for reforming that law and making it harder for people to get a divorce, making them wait longer, and also making them both agree. Because right now with a no-fault divorce, one person in that relationship can decide, and it's done. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just so hard on kids. And they say that if a couple stays together, what is it, like 4 extra years, if they stay together for 4 more years, some huge percentage, like 90% of them stay together for the rest of their lives. So,
Wow.
so they kind of need time to work it out. But nowadays it's just so like, hey, it's not working, we had a fight, I'm out of here. So,
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. The next question, and I'm so sorry, my 3-week-old is screaming his head off. So, does it seem that the government is effective in advocating for needy causes? Why or why not?
What
Yes and no.
are needy causes? Like, poor people? I don't know.
I think. Go ahead, Katie.
Oh, I just gonna think when I saw the question, it made me think of the freeloaders thing and how with the government's like focusing on the like poor people or like the Native Americans and stuff. And I think that's what it means, like those needy causes. And well, to answer the question, I don't think they're picking the right ones to advocate or whatever, because it doesn't seem like it works very well when they just from the video, it just doesn't seem like it works very well when they pay money to all these minorities and it doesn't help them get on their feet. They just freeload kind of thing. So
Yeah, I think they're trying to advocate for needy causes, but I think they're just hurting, just like the video was saying. It's just hurting everything in the long run. So, I don't know. Because there's too many people who will take advantage of the system. So it's not really, they haven't really found a really effective way to help those who actually need help, rather than helping those who just want to freeload.
Yeah.
Basically everything you just said, Katie.
Yeah.
that farmer thing bugged me.
Oh, yeah.
And the lawyer who thought it was okay, and he said, "Oh, I only made $10 million off that."
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Like, okay, you only made $10 million off,
Yeah.
putting the screws to the taxpayers, but that's okay because they deserve it. That I get so tired of the expectations. We deserve, the attitude. But I think that's the part that bugged me the most. It wasn't even that people could go out on the street and beg. We all know that's a scam most of the time. But, I mean, there are some, it's unfortunate for the ones who really are destitute, but
Yeah.
But the farmer thing, that bugged me. That made me mad.
Well, I had this conversation with my sister-in-law, my husband, today, and I just remember, my sister-in-law was saying how she has 2 nephews that are part Navajo, and that when they turn 18, they get a huge chunk of change, and then they also get a monthly check. So they
Wow.
don't have to work, and they get a check if they go to school. And she said that the check for them going to school covers all of their school, all of their housing, all of their food, all of their living expenses, and then the other check covers. I mean, they just get like this $10,000 or $15,000 chunk of change when they turn 18, and that's great and all, but okay. For example, my friend was telling me she lives in government assisted housing and she's going to school, and she was saying that her cousin lives there with her, but she has graduated and left, and it's only $30 a month rent, so she keeps it as a second home. This apartment. So what happens is, and then the other thing that she's done is she was so excited to get government assisted housing because now she can take vacations, and she goes on like 3-month vacations with her husband, and he only works until they're ready for after school vacations, till he's out of school, and then they go on.
You want us to wait for you? No, I'm just saying, go.
So I think what it does is it just creates a false sense of security And it's just like with those other, that Indian tribe that did not get the government assistance. You know, they said, well, how did you survive? Well, we have to feed ourselves. We had to find food. And, you know, and I'm looking at college, and I'm looking at all the things that we did to get through college or doing, or when my husband was going to school, and I'm like, dude, we didn't even have a toilet. We didn't have running water. We bought an apartment complex. We had to work our tails off to fix up every apartment, and we didn't have running water. You know, we had to go to the gas station for like 3 weeks. We had to put our food in an ice cube when our fridge broke because we were trying to fix it up. And of course, we got a check from it every month. But anyway, I think that what's so great about the church's welfare program is it puts people to work.
Right.
And there's a need for help. And just like when they said in that freeloader video, hey, we recommend that you put them to the program that's actually going to help them. And that one guy that started working on the street. When you start having to work for what you get, then you don't feel so, you know, it's not this magical money tree. I mean, if I always had a magical money tree, we'd run to it every day. We would always run to it. But the thing is that once the magical money tree doesn't work, if the people that are working decide not to work, like, and it just makes me wonder how long our economy can hold up until the people that work don't want to work anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry. Tangent. Okay.
No, you're right. Everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, and the bandwagon's going to break.
Yep.
It's true.
I agree. That's what I wrote mine on. I wrote mine on the assignment that was due today. I wrote it on like the poor and stuff. And like those welfare and Wicca and all those programs are good, but like there are people out there that abuse it. There are people that will have children because they know that they're just going to get free food and free money and free housing and free insurance and all that. And I don't think there's enough regulation on it. Like they need to actively be looking for a job in order to be in the program. Like if you're not looking for a job, you should not be in the program. Like you need to be actively like trying to get out of the welfare system, not staying in it and using it your whole life.
Yeah.
That's why it doesn't work. Not effective.
Yeah. That situation just irks me. It's just so like annoying because like there's so many people out there that we have to all work for our housing and work for our money. And I'm in college right now, and so when I'm home for the 5 months, I have to work to pay for my housing. I have to work to pay for the food that I'm going to eat. So I don't see that it's fair that they just keep continuing to have children and they live basically off of our taxes and stuff, supporting them, and they are capable of supporting themselves. Many of those people don't have disabilities. They're not handicapped. They have the opportunity to work. They just choose not to because they get it for free, and they're lazy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's definitely a need for it at some point, but then at some point it gets abused.
It does.
Second home. That was craziness.
And I also found that when I was doing my research for that thing, some of the actual, I don't think I can find it, I think I got rid of it, but some of the earliest like welfare systems began in like the colonies. And they created these things called British poor laws, and what they did was they gave money to the poor, and they taught them morals, and they taught them a work ethic, so that they have those skills that when they go into the work environment, they are capable of holding down a job, and they're capable of raising a family and being morally clean and not just being floozies and menaces to society. So they actually taught them like life lessons. Other than just giving them handouts, they would teach them morals and a work ethic to actually earn the money for themselves.
And that wasn't too much government involvement. All that was government facilitation of morals and values and education. And I think a lot of where we miss it is our government's enabling people without teaching them the skills to get out from under their situation. And
I agree.
You know, I mean, you look at the prisons, and there's so many guys who are happy to be there because they're being taken care of. They have a nice warm bed to sleep in. They have 3 meals a day. You know, they can work out all day, do whatever they want. They just can't leave, you know.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's prison to them.
Yep.
I don't know if they disapprove of that. I think they actually kind of like it, some of them, which is
Yeah,
sad.
that's interesting you say that because the gal, like, one of my neighbors said that her brother or somebody, every time he gets too many medical bills or his kids need braces, he just goes out and gets into prison because the prison system will puts their family on full covered health insurance and full covered dental.
That's crazy.
Yeah, on our tax dollars. I mean, we're paying for that because he got himself in a bind. He didn't want to man up and take care of his family. So,
Yep.
yeah.
And I think it's going to continue to get worse if they're allowed to do that. I found it very shocking that that one lady in that video didn't pay her mortgage for 25 years. How can you get away with that? That's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah. She worked the system, and she didn't feel bad about it.
And that's one of the issues. They don't feel bad. They don't have any moral conscience. They don't care. They are perfectly content with relying on the government to support them and their families.
Yeah, it's not effective.
This world's a crazy place. Sorry, next question.
Okay, we have 2 questions left, and we have about 40 minutes we need to fill up. So if anybody wants to go back to another question, that's fine. The next question, though, we can move on. Did anybody else have anything to say about the first 2 that we've done? Anything else they want to say before we move on? No? Okay. Do you feel that the United States government has deviated from or strayed at all from the language in their founding documents? Why or why not? If so, in what way has it deviated or strayed?
I think Allison just answered that when you said, was it you, Allison, who was saying the way they used to set up the system is quite different from the way it is today. What were you saying about that?
Just about like the
Educating them and
and educating them and just like I don't know how to like phrase it, but just
like that's not what the government does anymore. They deviated so far from that that it's like, here, let's just write a check and get you out of our way.
Yeah.
And then it was like, yes, we're interested in making sure that you get back on your feet.
Yeah.
So.
Like with my thing with abortion, the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, babies don't get that opportunity to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness because they're being basically killed. And so I think even if before it even started, and of course we're Mormons, it's going to come back to this, it's all about the family. If they're taught these morals and standards and values in the home about being morally clean and chaste and virtuous and all that, I think the world would be a better place and there would be less abortions, there would be less people on the welfare system and relying on the government to help them because they're taught those values at home. Mormons, we're taught to work for our money, we're taught to be upstanding citizens and contribute to society, and most of the people out there in the world aren't taught that. They're just taught get by however you can. If you have to lie, cheat, steal, that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. Yeah, it's crazy to me. But
yeah, I feel like Allison, I think it's true. It's like a basic life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. How can we pursue happiness if we lose our religious freedoms? Or, how can you pursue happiness if the basic unit that makes the people that matter the most to families aren't protected?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think that if I can go out on a limb here, I think that I see a very big correlation in the way our government runs the country and the way a lot of people run their households these days. And so let me just like expand a little bit on this. But I see a lot of, because I see families and how they interact with one another, and I work for a private school, and I see a completely different way of life with these people and their kids. And what I see is I see parents who want to look like good parents, and they'll bring their kids to a private school and they'll give them everything they can give them, and not require the kids to do any work. They want to do, a lot of them want to come and do the work for them. We actually have to make the kids do their projects in their own handwritings just to make sure that they've done their own work.
Wow.
Because otherwise the parents would do it. Parents would do it for them. So I think that, you know, like the government's no longer interested in teaching us and training us and making sure that we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They just want to put a Band-Aid on it by writing checks and keeping everyone under their thumb. And that's the way these parents are. That's the way they treat their children. Their children are afraid of them. They don't know them. They know the nanny better than they know the parents. And they know me better than they know their parents. I know them better than their parents know them. And it's sad because their answer to this is, let's just write a check and put a Band-Aid on it. And it'll go away. And I think that's how the government looks at it too. Okay, these people are just squeaking way too loud. You know, we'll just write a check to this group of people because they're yelling the loudest. You know, so am I on to anything here?
Yeah, I agree. But I have a counter to that. Back home in Texas, I work at a private school, and my mom is like the office manager of the private school. And those parents are rich. We've had professional football players, professional hockey players bring their children there. And it's a Christian school. And even if they're not Christian, they want their children to go there because they know that we instill values and standards, and we want them to work and we want them to strive for everything that they have. And that's why they bring their children there, because they know their children are going to get a quality education. They're going to be taught proper things. They're not going to be in the crazy school system. They're going to be a little bit sheltered, but they're still going to be in the world. That they're going to learn valuable things that they're going to need to learn throughout their life. We teach them Bible verses. We're not saying you have to be Christian, but their parents just like them to be in that environment because it instills good values and standards and characteristics in their children.
So are you saying that these parents don't give as many entitlements to their children? Allison?
I guess, but some of the kids are spoiled. Don't get me wrong, they're spoiled, and some of them are brats, especially the boys. But it just depends on the parenting. Some of the parents are amazing parents. Some of them work all the time, and their kids are there from 6:45 to 6 o'clock at night. And those are the kids that have the problems most of the time. And our school is changing now because we have a big Indian community around in our area now, and those mothers will pick up their kids at noon from school and they'll be home with their kids all the rest of the day. And so you can just tell the difference in the dynamics of children, of like the culture that they're like raised in, like their homes and stuff like that. Just like the difference in each home compared to like white children and Asian children, and we have like a mix of all different children. But some of the kids are out there and some of the parents are out there, but it just depends. But our kids are not really like lazy. Like they will work for what they have, but they're still children, so they can be entitled to certain things.
So then, Lisa, do you see any difference? Do you feel like the kids that are going to the school that you work at won't work for what they wouldn't be as?
No, not all of them are like that. I have a few that, you know, that are, you know, basically like Allison said. But by and large, what we are left with, because the economy has kind of weeded out a lot of people, what we're left with is sometimes we refer to, I don't know if it's nice or not, but we refer to them as the cream of the crop. the ones who probably didn't have to work for what they have, and the money was handed down. And so they don't know how to teach their kids the value of work, and they teach their kids that they're entitled to things. And, you know, for example, the other day I had one little kid come up to me and say, you know, I'm really, really thirsty. He was like sixth in line at the drinking fountain. He said, I'm really, really thirsty, and I think I need a VIP pass to the front of the line. And he was serious. He wasn't, I know this kid. I had him in third grade. He was a fourth grader. And he said, can I get in front of everyone because I'm like super hot and thirsty? And I said, no. I said, what if I gave everyone else behind you a VIP pass in front of you? How would that work? And, you know, he just stopped and he's like, I said, I bet they're a lot hotter and a lot more thirsty than you are. And it made him stop and think. But this kid was serious. And this is the kind of family that he comes from, kind of the entitlement type family. And I'm not saying I don't like the families or the kids or whatever. I love my job and I love my kids. But I just see there's a moral breakdown there that the parents aren't seeing. And maybe it's because I work in California too. I'm in Southern California and I'm in the entitlement state. You know, everyone here is entitled to something. And you know, there's not very many people here who are working. A lot of the working class are supporting them. And my husband once said, 20% of the people do 100% of the work. And that's about right.
I feel like there's something that relates to the government. You said that they've been handed down their money. And I feel like we've been handed down our freedoms. And with the question relating to the government, do you feel the United States government has deviated from or strayed from the language of its founding documents? I think, yeah, because we've been handed it, you know?
Hey, I have a quick question before we move on. I was supposed to do the summary at the end, but I have to go. So what do you guys want to do? You want me to do the summary?
Yeah, why don't you
so far?
And I don't know, Allison, if you were here to see this, but everybody else started at 7:30, and I was 20 minutes late, and then you were late, so Lisa has to go at 8:30, so we were just going to give her full credit because she's been here for an hour. That's her heart waiting for all of us. But yeah, go ahead and summarize what we've got, and then.
Okay.
I'm free to talk with whoever wants to stay on. I'm good if we need to stay on.
Sorry, I just happened to have this other one right after.
No,
so.
I'm sorry, I was late.
It's okay.
Me too. This Google Hangout thing is not my cup of tea.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'm going to summarize what we talked about tonight. We started out talking about the first question, how the government is, or what the government could be doing right now to help fight our threat to families more effectively. Amy's threat was abstinence before marriage, and we decided that the government definitely is supposed to protect life and provide for the pursuit of happiness, and they're not necessarily providing enough information to families to keep them from making mistakes. Actually, not families, but teens. Maybe there needs to be more teen programs available to them. Allison talked about abortion, and we mentioned the video of the African kids and how that prompted her to want to do her threat on abortion. Sarah talked about pornography and the threat of pornography on children in particular. We decided that the government shouldn't necessarily be involved in every little thing, but perhaps they could direct some of their attention to regulating and monitoring who is actually participating in pornography and receiving that information. Maybe they could reevaluate the direction somehow. Katie talked about couples having children before marriage and how that's a threat to the family because people are cohabitating, and what we thought might be a good government involvement there would be some proactive education and maybe some extra tax benefits to married couples. My threat was divorce, and we were talking about how the government could reform their no-fault divorce laws and maybe make it possible for divorce to have a little bit longer, drag it out a little bit longer so that people can rethink their decision. It's just way too fast and it's happening too much. The government needs to protect the basic family rights, and our freedoms. We feel like we're losing our freedoms to a society that feels like they are deserving of things that they don't necessarily earn. Freeloaders are abusing the system, and the report that we watched was very enlightening. And what happens is the government is taking their focus off the important things, and they're focusing on things that are enabling people to become more dependent on the government, which may or may not be their intent. People who are dependent on the government have a false sense of security. They become enabled. The government can learn from our church welfare programs. The church welfare programs are run very efficiently, and the government could definitely learn from that. We discussed how people don't have a moral conscience very much anymore, and that government no longer cares about the family and their freedoms and the pursuit of happiness. They're just concerned more with writing a check to put a Band-Aid on the problem. And that's as far as we got so far.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Good luck in the next meeting.
Thank you. Good night, girls.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our last question is, Elder Christofferson is speaking about the root of the problem of many of your topics. How then can you use this council to aid you in your approach to advocating your cause at the government and community level?
I just think, and I already said it, I'll say it again, but I think it starts with the family. If the parents are strong, not just in the gospel, but just are strong as a couple together, and they teach their children what's right and what's wrong and what's expected of them in society, then I think they'll be good, upstanding citizens. If they teach them morals and values and standards like we're taught in the church, then I think they could be big contributors to the bringing up of society.
Moral discipline is the name of Elder Christofferson's talk.
In his talk, there were a couple things I thought were really cool what he said. Just talking about moral behavior, and then also about giving our children agency. But the first one, he said that gentlemanly behavior once protected women from coarse behavior. Today we expect sexual harassment laws to restrain coarse behavior. Our increased resilience on laws to regulate behavior is a measure of how uncivilized we've become. And that's, I don't know, I read that and I was like, wow, that's like it kind of like made me go, whoa. Just because, like, the government keeps coming up with more and more laws, and I don't think that would happen if people were morally ethical, going downhill, and so the government thinks they need to fix it, and so they just come up with more things to do. But
Yeah.
and then yeah. Oh, you can go.
Oh no, go ahead, Kay. I thought you were done.
Oh, well, I was just going to kind of change the subject a little bit. It talks about, he said, he was talking about parents who want their children to have agency, but then he was like, what they don't understand is they can't use their agency properly if they don't know the truth. And so I found that interesting, just because last week we learned about how we talked about how someone tried to sue their parent, or in other countries, children tried to go to the court and sue their parents for making them go to church, and these children, if they don't go to church, then they won't know if they actually think it's good for them or not, kind of thing. Those are kind of both different ideas, but.
Well, and the threat on pornography. Whose was the threat on pornography again?
That's mine.
That's Sarah's? No, that's Katie's?
Sarah, sorry.
Sarah? Okay. Well, I was thinking about what you said, and I think it ties into this moral discipline. where we were trying to figure out how the government could regulate pornography better. And as far as advocating the government um, for the protection of some of these things and using the moral discipline, well, you can't really say moral because there is no moral code anymore in the world. So advocating the government for like the protection of pornography. In fact, I have a friend that went to the UN. He's a videographer, and he did a video on why we should protect against pornography. But I was wondering if one of the basic, okay, so the only thing I can think of that's still protected is moral decency. I'm sorry, not moral decency, but public decency. Like you have to be clothed in public, right? So I wonder if one way we could advocate is, I don't know, probably wouldn't work, but television decency. And what is the difference between, I mean, that's where I think a lot of the pornography starts. And what's the difference between the television decency or standing outside indecent exposure? Like, honestly.
Yeah,
That's true. There's not much difference.
that
So,
does make a lot of sense.
yeah. Maybe they could regulate what's on TV more. They keep expanding this moral. They keep chipping away at moral discipline. There is none, anymore. I don't know how much less moral discipline we can have as a world, but it seems like maybe that would be a way they could control it. If they can't control it on the internet, maybe they can control it in the media. What do you think?
Yeah, something that made me think of, this might be a little off topic, I guess, but I was watching something and he was going around and interviewing people about what value and morals mean, and like almost everyone had no idea what the definition of values or morals even are today. And so it's like you were saying, like that it is really hard to like enforce some type of moral thing because no one even understands what that means. And even in the freeloading video, that John, the main reporter guy, I can't remember his name, but he was saying how like, don't you think that's immoral? And the guy's like, no, like, what does morality even have to do with this? It's like, if you know what morality is, it has everything to do with this. So like, yeah, it is really hard to advocate for something when people don't even understand what the word means, even a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Elder Christopherson's talk is exactly what it boils down to. It boils down to moral discipline. That's it. you know? So.
Yeah. People being good because they should be. Now that has nothing to do with it, really.
All right. Well, does anybody else have anything to say about that? How we could our approach to advocating our cause at the community or government level, and how that relates to moral, to Elder Christopherson's talk about morality?
Well, like I said before, if there's more education about why we need to be moral, and like I'm sure there are tons of studies that show that the people that are more moral are more successful and more, not more rich, but like they're better off. The people that are less moral are probably not better off than others. They probably don't have as much money, or they probably
Divorced.
poor or needy or just whatever. There's probably so many studies out there that can be done to see the correlation between being morally clean and being not morally clean, like what it does like for your life and what the outcomes could be. So I think there's more education taught in schools about morality and how to go about it the right way, then I think a lot of these problems could basically start finding ways to like implement them into schools and businesses and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
isn't it interesting that the UN wants to promote the exact opposite of morality to solve these problems?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found that so crazy. Some of these videos we've watched, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this world coming to? Like, people are just losing it. They're on either extreme end of the spectrum. There's no more really like balance anymore. Like, either one extreme or the other. There's no middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know really how we would implement them, but I think it'd be good. Basically, everyone just needs to be Mormon, and the world would be a better place.
Hey, you know what? That reminds me of something. My brother-in-law went to Harvard, and he said that people at Harvard don't really swear because when you swear, it's thought of there as you're not educated enough to think of the right word to use. And so you're looked on as not wise or not smart. And, so that's kind of, I feel like swearing is kind of moral ground, kind of, at least approaching moral ground or not swearing, but, that's education. They're educated enough to understand that swearing is not educated, and maybe that is the answer, Allison. Maybe the answer is, educate them to understand that abstinence is the only way to prevent AIDS. I don't know. Anyway, education. I like that answer.
Thank you.
Anyway. All right. Anybody else have any other comments?
I don't.
I don't.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming to the meeting. I today. I'm glad I came in a few minutes early. 10 minutes early to catch you guys. But yeah, so I'll just summarize the last question because we didn't do that. We just basically talked about how other Christoffersons and how the morality is breaking down and how we need to have education in order to advocate, and that morality is the root problem, and that if people can be educated about how morality can help, and that can be the first line of defense, then that it might be a great route to go with government advocacy. Okay, I think we're done. Thanks so much for recording, Katie. Are you going to post it?